Hey everyone. First of all, thank you for all of the comments on my previous video about Queen. You never know, when you make a video, if it's going to do well or not. And I actually do focus more on the comments than how many views the video gets. So thank you all. I hope this video gets some comments. So this idea is I've selected 12 albums, well, 12 artists, and one of their most popular best-selling albums, which, I either like or really love, but there's a less successful, I guess, album that I love even more. And so there's 24 albums, and 12 of these albums I love more than the more popular ones. So, first up is Creedence Clearwater Revival. I've read that John Fogerty's favorite CCR album is Green River, and it's a great album for sure. But this and Willie and the Poor Boys, I probably play much less than, Cosmos Factory, even Pendulum, which I think is an underrated album. But I love, more than Green River, one of their second album, Bio Country. And I think it's because this was one of the very first albums that I owned. It wasn't one of my older brother's albums. It was my album, along with the Guess Who Share the Land, the Beatles' Abbey Road. I might have had like 10 albums in total. And this was one of them, and it was the very, I probably heard Proud Mary and some of their other early hits on the radio. But this was the first CCR album I ever owned, and so it's one of my favorites, along with Cosmos Factory. Next up, this is, regarded by most fans as their best album, or right near the top, Led Zeppelin 4, and it is. I absolutely love the album. But if I want to play a Led Zeppelin album, I rarely go to this one. And one of their less loved albums is Led Zeppelin 3. It still sold very well, and I'm not saying Led Zeppelin fans don't like it, but compared to this, of course, this is much more popular. But I would rather listen, if I had a choice between these two albums, I would probably mainly listen to this one. Next up, this is the last one I added. King Crimson, their debut album. It's great. I love it. 21st Century Schizoid Man, of course. I Talk to the Wind is amazing. The Court of the Crimson King. The whole thing is great. I love it. And this is the new Steven Wilson remix. But in the last few months, these are the only two King Crimson albums I own. I need to get more. But Discipline, I am so impressed with this album. I have played it quite a lot in the last, I'd say, year, maybe. So, once again, this is, more popular, I think, overall than Discipline. And I would just, if I, had to choose which one do I want to listen to, it would be Discipline. Grand Funk, one of their biggest selling albums, is We're an American Band, which is a great album. But I would rather listen to Grand Funk's Survival, which, didn't sell quite as many copies as this one. Now, this is, some of these albums, like I said, the fans love both albums, but one just a tad more than the other. I think for these two albums, there's a wider, whatever you want to call it, between loving the album and liking the album. A lot of fans of the band absolutely love music from Big Pink, and I do too. But I would rather listen to the band Cahoots, which, you know, I don't think it did quite as well on the charts. I might be wrong there, but I know, you know, between these two albums, this one is loved more than Cahoots by most fans of the band. So yeah, I play this one. And the other thing too is, this was an album I bought in the early 70s. It was my first album by the band. And I think you have more of a connection, you know, instead of hearing the album from one of your older brothers or whatever, it's your album. And so it makes it a bit more special, I guess. This band, yeah, their second album did really well on the charts. And the one that I love more, I don't think it did quite as well on the charts. And, you know, between the two of them, I would say more Black Sabbath fans love Paranoid, which I love too. I'm not saying I don't like these albums. I do love them. But I would rather listen to Sabotage. I probably listen to Sabotage at least twice as many times as Paranoid. Elvis Costello. I was a fan from him right from his first album, My Aim is True. And, you know, this is one of his most loved albums, you know, the early stuff. But I feel that this is even a better album than My Aim is True, Blood and Chocolate, with Elvis Costello and the Attractions. When I actually bought it, it took a while for me to warm up to it. But yeah, between these two albums, I would usually play Blood and Chocolate. Okay, so this artist, definitely, if, you know, for fans of this artist, if I showed them, which one of these two albums do you like more? I would say probably 70-80% would say Neil Young's Zuma, which, as always, is a great album. But I would much prefer the very underrated Neil Young Trance. I know, I'm weird. And I even love, you know, Landing on Water. I'm not saying it's as good as Zuma or anything, but I like the songs on it. And once again, comparing albums, most Clash fans would consider this their best album, or right at the top. And I love it, but I rarely play it because, you know, when I bought it, I loved it right away. But I kind of got tired of the album pretty quickly. It's like I never really need to listen to it again, even though, like I said, it is a great album. I always go for Sandinista, or even Give 'Em Enough Rope, which I've grown to really love too. Now, most fans of Lou Reed consider Transformer one of his best albums, if not his best. And once again, I don't play it that often. I like it, but I like a lot of other Lou Reed albums more, including Sally Can't Dance, which I guess this did do really well on the charts. But, you know, review-wise with fans, a lot of them would consider Transformer much better than Sally Can't Dance. But I love the album. Now, the Moody Blues, after their debut album, they released like so many great albums in a row. And I would think that Days of Future Past is one of the most loved. And it is a great album. But I feel Every Good Boy Deserves Favor, which is probably would rank usually near the bottom of those first 7 albums after the debut. I think this is a very underrated album. And so I play this much more than this. Oh, we've got some Beatles content. one of John Lennon's best-selling albums is Imagine. Imagine that. But I would rather listen to, I love this album, but I would rather listen to Plastic Ono Band or what I feel is a very underrated John Lennon album, Walls and Bridges. The final two. Yeah, I think both of these albums are loved by most of the fans of this band, but one more than the other. The Kinks are the Village Green Preservation Society, great album. But I would rather listen to Arthur or Lola versus Paraman and the Money Go Round Part 1, which, once again, the reason I'm more, not that I don't love this album, I do, but I'm more connected to this because it's, once again, one of the albums in the early 70s I bought. It was my very first Kinks album, along with that the Black album, the double with all their hits on it. I think that was the very first one I bought, and then the very first studio album I bought was this one, so I've always loved this a lot. And that's it. I would love your thoughts on what I've, do you agree with me on any of these albums you like more than the other? Or are there other albums that are really popular and you like the less loved albums by the artist? Another one I was thinking of was David Bowie. Ziggy Stardust. It's a fantastic album. But I play some of his less popular albums more than that, usually. So that's it. Thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe, like the video, or dislike it. I don't care. And leave a comment below. Thank you. Bye.